South African Transport and Allied Workers Union, Deputy President Nkoketse Sepogwane, and also the General Secretary of the United National Transport Union, Cobus Van Vuuren. A very good evening to you both, and thank you so much for speaking to us. Perhaps let me start with you, Mr. Sepogwane. So as things stand, when you talk about intensified strike action, what does it look like?
Oh, good evening to you and your viewers. So intensifying the strike, we're literally going to get all our employees and summon them to go and picket outside Transnet premises to strengthen our position in terms of bringing the employer to offer us a better offer than the one that the employer has offered and workers have mandated us to reject, of course. And so intensifying the strike means we're going to add on more numbers, because remember, the union that we're organizing with at Transnet had only been the one that has been on the streets. So now we're joining them, and that obviously will intensify the strike, because some of the members of SATAWU were actually reporting for duty under the period that we're from. But now at 0001, we're requesting all our members to withdraw their services from the employer and join the picketing lines.
So what you're saying is that you're talking about a total shutdown, and do you not have fears, given the fact that Transnet has refused to authorize picketing, that it may create some sort of difficulty for your members?
No, it's not. We've told our members to be well behaved, well gathering in front of the premises of the employer without forcing for access. So our members will be there carrying their placards. They'll be as peaceful as possible, and we are urging for people to not provoke our members, but our members know what to do. We've got well-behaved members that will not do anything that is untoward, either to the property or to other human beings that will be trying to access the workplace.
All right. So,
up until the employer of the picketing rules.
Mr. Van Vuuren, does the same apply to you? And if you could also just reflect on the latest negotiations with the employer. I believe you met on Tuesday last week and you rejected an offer that they put to you. I believe it was a 4% offer that's divided into 3% across the board and a lump sum. Can you confirm this?
That is correct, but I think I need to contextualize the offer. So what Transnet has offered on Wednesday, during very robust and extended discussions up until 1 o'clock in the morning, is that they offer between a 3 and a 4% increase based upon the levels of employees. So the lowest level of employee will get a 4% increase. The mid-range would get a 3.5% increase, and then your junior management, they are offering a 3% increase. However, that 3% they have indicated is also then applicable to all the rest of the more senior management team. So if you look at it from a practical perspective, a 4% increase on the lower income levels is a couple of R100 a month. If you take a 3% increase on the executive salaries, we're talking about thousands of rands of increase. And it is not palatable. I mean, it is the lower level employees that is facing the most difficult economic challenges. And the offer as it stands has been rejected, and it's obvious through the action that we have embarked upon. And we are glad our SATAWU colleagues are joining us. Retusa is also joining us tomorrow. So as from tomorrow, there will be much more intensified action across all of the Transnet premises.
What is your non-negotiation figure? Because SATAWU says it will not accept anything beyond 10%. And we'll come back to you, Mr. Sepogwane, but I'd like to hear from you, Mr. Van Vuuren. What is your non-negotiable that you will not go beyond?
I cannot speak on behalf of the employees without a mandate, but the members and the employees want an increase that is aligned with the CPI, aligned with the cost of living. And whatever Transnet comes up with as a counter proposal or a counter offer, we're going to have to take back to our members. And the members will have to mandate whether it's an acceptable or not acceptable offer.
All right. Mr. Sepogwane, just to hear from you, when we talk about a 13 to 14% wage demand, and Transnet said it can't afford it, and you're saying you're willing to negotiate, but no less than a two-figure increase. Just give us, in terms of practical terms, what it will mean for your members, their affordability levels, the standard of living that they are exposed to now given the current wages.
Look, I don't know where you get the issue of the double digit and the 10%, because we have always been saying we are talking to our members, we're negotiating. When the employer brings an offer, we go back to our membership for our membership to mandate us, and we have never had put a stop block on the negotiations and said nothing beyond this or nothing below this. But we obviously were aligned on the issue of CPI plus, because we don't want our employees to get anything less than the inflation in the country, because that would mean that that is a non-increase on their part. So, but we have never had any interview where we put a stop blocker and say,
all right, so I'm quoting one of your colleagues, Mr. Mazibuko, who has said, and I quote, that you will not accept anything from 10% and below. So you are saying this is not true. I'll take what you're saying, but I still go back to if you could just give us a sense of the current wages, the kind of living standards, quality of life that it affords your members, and what a 13 or 12 or 13.5% increase will do in terms of improving that.
It will definitely improve their lives. Remember, we're talking about employees that during COVID-19 were forced to stay at home and lose their overtime and other allowance benefits, which were part of the package that they're used to taking home. So when you go to a double digit, definitely you are improving their livelihoods, because some of the debt that they had left behind during COVID-19 will be saved by some of the percentage that would have increased on their salaries. But the other thing that we always putting forth as an argument is that during the restructuring, the employer offered all executive managers promotions of positions that were reworked, and some of their workbooks are still the same. But the employer felt they need to add an extra 300,000 of a salary on a workbook that is still the same, just because they are just changing the grade from general manager to managing executive. So we know the employer has the capacity to offer people beyond what we're actually demanding, especially people that are highly paid, like the General Secretary of UNTU has already said, that the bottom line guys are cheaper to actually increase. The top line guys are actually the ones that are more expensive. If you're giving them 3% and all these other percentages, how much does it equate to? That 3%. It's a lot of 10,000, because they are already earning above millions in terms of their annual salaries. So that has always been our argument, that the employer cannot cry financial poverty now when it has to pay junior officials, whereas during the time where it was increasing salaries of managers during restructuring, there was no poverty that was spoken about. And we want to also put it on record that the 65% salary increase that they're talking about, it's majorly sitting on the top hierarchy of the company. That's where the salary bill is actually most expensive and very heavy, because we're a top-heavy organization with a lot of general managers that we don't even know what they are doing. So this is some of the things that are actually creating financial problems for the organization, because the reorganization process was not done transparently, so with financial targets to reduce costs. And even after the VSP, that was very expensive and very unnecessary from our part.
All right, Mr.
So the employer is always having the capacity to pay workers this.
All right, Mr. Van Vuuren, the fruit exporters are saying that this strike action could result in a loss of revenue in the agri-industry, leading to a possible loss of 30,000 jobs. Obviously, this makes it a double-edged sword. You're fighting for your workers, but what do you say about the argument that they're advancing, that your strike action could actually put into jeopardy other jobs out there?
You know, unfortunately, strike action is always a very last resort. And there's a fine balance between the interest of the greater economy and the workers that we represent as UNTU. We have to, as a union, look after our members while trying to strike a balance with the economy. However, we have been left with no other option other than to embark on strike action. There has not been a strike that has been initiated in the last 12 years in Transnet, as far as I'm aware. And this is an absolute last option. We cannot, and I've said it in some other media releases, we cannot let our employees bear the brunt of years of mismanagement, years of loans, making loans and loans and loans to try and finance the operations, and the state capture. We cannot expect our members to carry the brunt of all that has happened. That is just not fair or reasonable.
Mr. Sepogwane, do you share that sentiment that your workers who are at the bottom tier, as you say, of earnings are being forced to bear the brunt of mismanagement, fruitless and wasteful expenditure? But more importantly, I'd like to hear what the CCMA position was when you sat down and you tried and hammered out a solution to the current impasse.
Look, we're only having the meeting with the CCMA tomorrow to try and mediate on this impulse and try to get both us as joint labor and the employer closer to each other. So with that being said, so the CMA has not been heavily involved except the commissioner that was doing it internally, that gave us the certificate of non-resolution that allows us to go on a strike. But to just sort of wrap things up for you, we're in an organization that has got finances that it does not want to give to junior employees. In fact, we're living in a situation of an animal farm where the guys that are occupying the top level will always enjoy the fruits of working for a state-owned organization like Transnet. But in terms of the understanding about the economy, look, we are trade unions that understand that the economy is a job creator to an extent, and it's a job sustainer. But we can't be cornered not to negotiate for our members because we will be labeled to be not sensitive to the economy. Because our members are also affected by this economy that we are talking about. They need to have food, they need to have money to come to work, money for petrol, money for school fees for their kids, because they are providers in their families. And some of them are even looking after 5 or 6 families because of the poverty levels in South Africa. So it's only fair that they get an increase based on this analysis that we are having. And we have analyzed, and we are not turning a blind eye on the impact that this thing would have to the economy. Hence, we keep on reiterating that we wrote to the President of the Republic, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, we wrote to Comrade Pravin Gordhan as the shareholder representative for Transnet and the Minister in Public Enterprise. So we have really tried by all means to avoid going to a strike because we are a responsible trade union. But however, our cries are falling on deaf ears. That's why now we're embarking on this industrial action that we think is justifiable, taking into account that we've been ignored for far too long.
So, Mr. Van Vuuren, just to continue from where Mr. Sepogwane is speaking from on the impact on the economy, this is what the South African Association of Freight Forwarders is estimating, that the loss to the economy in terms of supply chain is anything between 100 million and 1 billion rand per day if the strike goes ahead. The delays will see this amount being taken out of the economy. Would you concur with those figures? And what is the last resort? I know you say industrial action is a last resort, but what else can you do to drive your point home?
So I cannot confirm the numbers because I haven't seen the numbers and I don't know how they've been calculated. But we have alluded to the fact that maybe it is time for the government to intervene and provide the types of bailouts that they've provided for other SOEs. If you look at SAA, Denel, and Eskom, there has been hundreds of billions of rands that has been provided in the form of bailouts to those other SOEs. Transnet is probably the one SOE that has been lasting the longest, and this is probably the only SOE, or one of the only SOEs, that government's got an opportunity to actually save and help to get back onto their feet. We don't want Transnet to end up in the same situation as the NEL and SAA. And maybe it's time for government to step in and say, well, let's see how we can help.
All right, Mr. Sepogwane, is an open-ended strike likely?
No, we don't think the strike will be open-ended. We are actually thinking that the employer will be creative to come up with a good offer tomorrow, and we anticipate that the strike might end tomorrow. But if the employer will continue to be as arrogant as they are now, we are left with no resort but to continue dragging the strike. But that is not our intention. In fact, our intention was never to strike, by the way. We must keep on reiterating that, taking into account the sensitivity to the economy that the strike might be. So we've never wanted to strike, but we were forced to go to a strike.
I know you said that you are willing to negotiate. Just very briefly, what would be creative enough for you to say, we won't go to strike tomorrow?
Look, like I've been saying, that anything above the inflation that Lesetja Kganyago keeps on hitting us with, and something that will actually be substantial for the workers will be accepted. But I can't preempt now and try and give numbers, because my mandate now, as it says, is 18.5%. But I'm saying when we negotiate, obviously, whatever the employer offers and it is reasonable, we'll go and take it back to the workers, and the workers will then give us guidance. Because I keep on reiterating that SATAWU is a worker-controlled organization, and only when the workers say this is sufficient for them will they themselves take themselves to work. But other than that, I'm a leader representing a mandate of the members of SATAWU.
All right, I thank you both for your time. That there is SATAWU's Deputy President Nkoketse Sepogwane, and we're also speaking there to the General Secretary of the United National Transport Union, Cobus Van Vuuren. Thank you very much to you both about the impending strike action at Transnet tomorrow. They're saying it's a total shutdown from where they sit for as long as the employer sits at the position that they're at, that is 3 to 4% that they're offering the workers.